Imagine it's 2 a.m. and your apps is ready to ship. You just run it and just bam, null pointer exception. That's a $1 billion mistake. So today I am going to show you exactly how Kotlin makes this physically impossible. Let's go. Alright, so the very first thing we need to understand is that what even is a nullable type in Kotlin. So here comes the fun function me. Alright, so the very first thing we need to understand is this, right? Val user string, then this question mark comes in, and then we have read ln or null here. So as you can see this question mark after string, right? That's everything. I mean in Kotlin, every type is non-nullable by default. So if I write val user string here, the compiler just guarantees that the value will never be null. It literally won't compile if you try to assign null to it. But the moment you add that question mark, you are making a contract that you are telling Kotlin that hey, this might be null and I am aware of it. This is the message it basically gives, right? And then we have read ln or null here. You can notice how the name itself suggests that it reads a line. But if there's no input, it just returns null. So that's why the type is string and question mark, because the value is genuinely might not exist. Then in the second line, as we have seen here, val user 2 and then int and question mark, read ln or null. Now this one's interesting because we are reading input but then calling .toInt here on it, because using question mark and dot. So that little question mark dot is, we will go deep on that in a second, but just notice that the result is int question mark and not int, because the whole thing might be null. So that's why we have put .toInt here. And now let's run it. I will type something for both, and as we can see here that I will type sid and 78. Okay, so I believe that it's perfect, both prints fine, right? Now I will leave the second one empty, user 2 is null, prints null, right? So no crash and no exception, the program just keeps running. Basically this is what Kotlin's predictability about nullability, right? It's just explicit about nullable. Okay, so now we know how to declare nullable types, but how do you actually use them without crashing? That's where the safe call operator comes in with question mark and dot. So let's just type it out, fun me. Let me just type it. And then we have val num1 and int question mark again, because we don't know if it's null or not null, right? And then we have read or null, then again question mark dot to int or null, because we don't know if the input will be null or not null, if the integer, basically the number, will be null or not null. So we just type it out here. Okay, so now let's do the same thing for num2. We have val num2 int question mark read or nl, right? Read or null, then we have toInt or null, right? This is what we do when we take an input. We have to check if it's null or not. Alright, then let's just move to if num1 is equal to null or num2 is equal to null, right? We can see here, then curly braces, then we have println, and bro, it is $num1 and $num2, right? This is what it prints when the user gives the input here in num1 and num2, and that's how we check nullable, whether it's nullable or not nullable. And then we have the else, right? Then inside else what we do is we just println and just say it is null, and let me just type it out, println null, and it's done. Then what we do here is we create a main function here and just print this me function inside it, right? Inside the main function. Now let's take a look at the output, and we can see that after 6 7 and the second one is null, and we can see here that it's crashing, right? So what the mistake here is that after we have seen here val num1 dot toInt, it shouldn't be toInt here. That's my mistake. We should have toInt or null, because we are checking if the integer is null or not, and we have to do the same for num2. Alright, so now let's just run our output. We have to check our output, right? Alright, so we can see how it's working just fine. we have seen 67 and the next second one is null, so that's why it's giving us the output, bro, it is null. And now in the other one we can see 78 and 95, we can see, bro, it is 78 and 95. So it's working just perfectly as we have expected. So now let's move to the Elvis operator. So what we do here is that the safe call is great, but sometimes you don't want null back. Sometimes you want a default value when something is null. And for that, Kotlin gives us the Elvis operator, the question mark and this colon, right? So as we can see here, what I have written here is val number int question mark and then colon. My bad, just read line question mark dot to int or null. Once again we are checking if it's null or not, and then we have to do the same thing for number 2, right? We also have to check whether the input given by the user is null or not. So let me just type it out. And also one more thing, that it should be read line or null, right? So remember that mistake, don't be careless like me. And then what we do here is we have the if else statement. So if number is not equal to none and number 2 is not equal to null, so what we have to print here is gg and $number and $number 2. That's what we are going to print here, right? And also one more thing I want you to all notice, that you can see that question mark and colon 74 at the end of the first line. So here's how it reads, that you just evaluate the left side. If the result is still null, so use 74 instead, and if not null, use whatever come back. So if the user types nothing or just types anything like randomly nothing, so the number becomes 74 here. It is literally never null. The Elvis operator is your safety net below the safety call. So let me just type else part of it, and we have println no way, right? And now let's just write the main function here, and we have written the main function here as you can see. So let me just type it 4546 and 3454. Let me just do it, and we can see the output is GG4546 and 3454, right? And let me just rerun it, and we can see here that 567 we have given this the input and the output is no way, which is just working fine. Alright, so now let's go deeper, because in real apps you are not just dealing with a single nullable string. You have got objects inside objects and inside objects. So view models holding repositories are holding data classes, and null can live anywhere in that chain. So this is where safe navigation chains are an absolute lifesaver here. So we can see here that person2 holds person has a name and an age, and notice that all of them are nullable. So this is realistic. You might get this idea from an API where any field could be missing. So now let's just type the main thing, and now look at this thing, that gg.person, right? gg question mark dot person dot question mark dot name, right? So Kotlin checks from left to right, that is gg null, no, then moves on. That now we check is gg.person null, if no, then moves on, right? And then is gg.person.name null, no, then returns it. So if any step in that chain is null, the whole thing short circuits and returns null. So no crash, no exception. And as for age, we know that it's null in our object, so the Elvis operator gives us 23 as the default. So when we run it, we have OP prints 23 because age was null and Elvis kicked in, right? And data prints GG, name was set and change just worked fine. Now when we change person to null and run again, now just watch it, and let me make person itself null. So when we just run it, OP is 23, data is null, the chain hit null at person, right? It stopped, it returned and null again. So it didn't crash trying to access dot name on a null object. That's the chain protecting, isn't it? Basically, if you do the same thing in Java, to do this safely, you would need nested if null checks at every level. Like literally you will need nested if null checks at every level, right? As we can see, that is the famous pyramid of doom, right? So Kotlin just collapses all of that into one line. So what we did here is we have data null data class person. Inside it we have val name string, val age int, then we have val person, and then question mark because we don't know what is inside it, right? Then we have the main function here. Inside our main function we have created three variables, and those three variables are variable gg, person2, then the person which was the variable inside the person, right, data class. So person gg null, and then we have the another variable called val data, and inside we don't know if it's gg, person or name is null, right? So that's what we are checking it. That's the safe navigation chain. And then this is how we do it. As we can see, when I run it, op is 23, data is null, and for the first time when we saw it, op prints 23 because age was null and Elvis kicked in, right? As we can see it here, because the chain hit null at a person start returned and turned his null. So the last one, and that's the most powerful one, which is scope function. So Kotlin gives you let, run, also, and apply. These are the scope functions, and each one lets you work inside a context with your nullable value. So before we seeing this, let me just break it down for you that let gives you the value as it, right? Inside we are still using calls and Elvis because num is typed as int question mark. If you use question mark dot let instead of dot let, the block only runs when non-null. So that is used for avoiding null checks. And run gives you this instead of it. So that is the same idea, that it just runs a block and returns the last expression. And for also, it is for the side effects, right? So notice it prints 34, not the number. The original value is passes through completely unchanged. As we can see that we use this for logging, analytics, debugging, anything that shouldn't affect the main flow. And as for apply, so it is basically just like run with this but designed for more configuration. So we use apply for configuration. And before going, I just want you to tell that the golden rule is never use assertion in production because it throws away everything Kotlin just built for you. And if this helped, like the video, it genuinely helps the channel grow.